morning. So, after this intro, I will just talk a little bit more about myself. If you wanna find me, I'm in Lagos. I'm based in Lagos. That's a picture, the place that I'm living now. But the first time that we have met, I was living in Ireland, and I think this is for many people during the pandemic. I was just like stay in Lagos for holidays, and then I got stuck there, and I was like, what a bad place to be stuck then, and I just decided to live there. But if you want to find me on social media, it's at Fellyph. All social medias, it's a good way to have this weird name. We were discussing yesterday like how people change names in Brazil, but so. I'm a DevRel at ArtCamp at the moment, and also I'm Google Developer Expert, and also I'm GDG organizer. I think I didn't have enough things to do, and I started like a GDG group in Lagos as well. So if you're around Lagos anytime, and just check if there is any meetup there. There we are doing more social meetups, like we have beers and like more like light events, and then I'm a content creator. So the Portuguese speakers that are here today, if you want to find more content related to the things that I will show today, I have plenty of videos showing those things. Okay, and now just to talk a little bit about the past, present, and future, like what is around CSS. I have one friend yesterday here. We work in agents like years ago, 15 years ago. We were in Brazil, and I would just remember the time that we had those things. Like we have Internet Explorer 6 and 7, and every time we want to use something new, we need to wait 5 years to use a new feature. It was like life like that. If you had like a transparent PNG, you should use like JavaScript to make the PNG transparent on Internet Explorer. And for many developers, we just grow with that feeling that, okay, I need to wait 5 years to use those new fancy stuff. And other things change. We have new features, and 2022, I was like super excited to show one property on CSS that was image set. And I was just showing how cool it is. You can send to the browser different versions of the same image, and the browser will decide which image will pick, like modern formats like AVF or WebP. And when I was doing the demo, didn't work on Chrome. And I did the example on Firefox at home, and when I was presenting, the example didn't work. And then I started looking, I was like, oh gosh, why that happened? And then I started like researching. And first, like because 2022, we think that Internet Explorer was the biggest blocker in our life as front-end developers. Say, okay, Internet Explorer 11 is gone, and everything's shiny and fancy now, we can do whatever. But the problem at that moment was we have different browsers doing different stuff every single month. So we have those features here, like A, E, and D, and Safari is doing something totally different, like implement features X, L, and D. And if you want to use in a month a feature, it's really hard to pick like A or E or D, because not all those features are supported everywhere, right? And then at that same time, I discovered an initiative that is called Interop. The Interop it's a committee, like all the browsers get together and they decide every year what they will ship. What's the feature that will be the priority for the year? And that was an important thing that happened because now we are seeing things changing a lot. And some of those people that work behind the scenes are here. I think one person that, like Kenneth, is here. Like he's doing a lot of things behind the scenes to make those things happen, negotiate, and like make the engine work for us, especially we as developers, because now we have more consistent like release from all the browsers. And another really nice initiative, it's a baseline. The baseline what they do, they create like a set of features that it's safe to use. So once you go to any platform that you have any documentation, on the top here, you can have this mark that, oh, those features are widely used by all the main browsers. And it's kind of a flag to say, it's okay, it's safe to use. Maybe you won't have problems. I got some weird scenarios that like I was like checking the baseline, but the client has a structure that didn't fit, but it's really, those conditions are 2 or 3 versions behind that you're gonna flag as safe. And usually when you're talking about 3 versions behind, you're talking about like 2 to 3 months that the version was released already. Okay, I talked a little bit about what it's happening behind the scenes, but what is new? First, one item that I have a few moments that I need to fix that problem. It's 100 VH. Who's using 100 VH here? And who had problem before with 100 VH? yeah. It's really nice feature. The first time when I saw that, I was like, oh, that will solve a lot of problem. But when we got in a different screen size, what's happening is like 100 VH is not always filling the area they're seeing. So, and the browser, like on Safari or Chrome or Android or any other platform, then we have different UIs for the browser, and 100 VH is not always the area that we're going to see fully on your screen, because you can have some elements like using that 100% area. And what happened? Now we have different formats. We have the smallest viewport, that is like when your UI is like fully over bars and things that are used by the OS, and you can get that specific smallest area to set something. I want to place a button here, or I want to place something that will kind of like see half of the screen, and then we can use those new values. And we have the largest viewport, and we have an extra one, that is the dynamic viewport. Dynamic viewport will always adapt to your UI. If you have all the bars on, or if you have like none of the bars on, you're gonna get always 100% of this area. And talk about the situation, the baseline. One scenario that I had, that I used dynamic viewport, and I was like, okay, that's really cool. And I used that in production, and then I got some clients complain, and I just realized that the schools, they are using a version that is from the last year, because they just release yearly versions of the browsers. And we're like, okay, but if you have any trouble with that, we can just put like a fallback, and everything will be working fine. Another nice thing that I was amazed when I saw that was container queries. Container queries, it's super interesting, especially when you work with components. And for example, you build your component and you ship that component in one library that everyone can use. The nicest thing about that is you can define the rules about that component will behave based on the area that component is placed. One example here, I have my hometown here, Caruaru. Kenneth knows this place is a beautiful place. We have like a really nice São João party. Here in Portugal, we celebrate São João as well, but I need to say our São João it's crazy better. But the important thing here is we have an image, we have a title and a text, and the structure here is the same, like the content's the same, but that component here has more space to grow. So what I did, I just used container query to set 2 columns. So if you have like 300 pixels or 400 pixels, just be in 2 columns. If you have a small area, just do everything in 1 column. It's not related about the viewport, it's related the area that element is placed. Another new thing that I have here, just one important information. Sometimes I forgot to say that, but here are the versions that are supported by that feature. So every slide, I just put the version of the browser that support that feature. So it means that all the browsers support that. This one, especially when I see projects with Bootstrap, what's happening is like the person just like pull the Bootstrap and start overwrite everything. And just like do important, important, important. Everything's important. And if everything is important, nothing is important, right? And the thing that I just searched for the keyword important, I have like 206 like important inside the CSS. And that one problem is about like priority, how we're gonna overwrite those things. And layers, it's a new item that we can use today. We can set layers of priority. So we can tell to the browser, okay, this is one layer. This is my Bootstrap, my framework. And then I have my base CSS. And if something came from the, like I have one editor that dynamically injects CSS there, like from the user or for the admin. I just set another layer, and then I can just define, oh, the framework's the least important, and then my base layer is the most important one, and the editor is like important than everything. And I just solved that problem that I don't need to use important for everything. So, question now. I still have troubles to figure out that. Mean dash width 600 pixels. What is that? Is greater or equally than 600, or like smaller and equal than 600? Just do a quick question here. The first one, just raise your hand. The second one? Yeah. Personally, I still not know. I just like put on the CSS and change and like see on the screen, okay, if not that what I want. But the good thing now we have new syntax range. And what we can do, we can use like the mathematical way to say that. It's not like we'll change anything. It's just change the way of we working. It's clear for us as developers. We know that this thing is like, okay, it's greater or equally than 600, and I want to do that. Another nice scenario that we can do, we can apply range as well. I can set like a starting point and an ending point, and then I can apply the rules for that specific scenario. Okay, another nice thing, I was just like going over, because we have a lot of things today, and my time, I just saw the, okay, I have time, because I saw the 10 minutes, I was just, 10 minutes that I was speaking, okay, cool. I will slow down a little bit now. And property. Property, it's, I have here, just the debugging side, but property, what we do, we set a semantic value for a CSS property. And if you ever use like something, some variable here, or maybe something that's happened in production, some Slack message here, don't. If you look for that like value before property, everything was a text. So if you try to set one value, the browser doesn't know that you are passing a percentage, or if you press a color, or any type of property. They just like concatenate everything, and after they concatenate everything, they try to render that value. And what we have now, we have kind of like TypeScript for CSS. We can set, okay, this color primary here, it's a color. And when we set that, the browser will know that this is a color. And we have a lot of things that we can do now. That is like, one, I can set a fallback. So any initial value that when I try to access will be set here. And if someone tries to change that value that is not a color, what happened before with the string, we just lose the whole line. But now with property, we don't lose that whole line. We just say, okay, that value is not a setable because it's not a color, and I will just keep using magenta. Done. Other really nice thing that we have now with those values, that we can do animation. We can pass properties for animations for background colors, because now it's not, the browser knows, okay, I want to go from black to white or blue to green, and I know that those ending points are colors, and I can think about a transition between those items. And like when I split before that presentation, like I did it like a few times these years, and always I put that part here on the future because I consider that, okay, if not all the browsers are supporting that, it's okay, it's future. But we got Firefox now on the version 121, supporting that new feature has. Looks really simple. I just showed two scenarios here, but we can do a lot of things with has. And basically, we are having here a parental selector. So things that we, I don't know, in the past, like going back to the Internet Explorer like season and time, we have jQuery, and we used to do with jQuery like .find or .query or something, just to change some visual aspect of that element. But now we can do that only with CSS. So here I have an example that I was just checking card. If card has an element inside that element that has a class feature, I will just set a border with 2 pixels with that color. This is the card here. I think Kenneth is like starting missing Pernambuco now with all the folds. Like. I would just say, no. Usually, like when I show that to people, like people say, "What those fools?" Like, well, you know, he lived in Pernambuco. He knows those fools. I just for like it's like almost Laura Y here. Yeah, and so what I'm doing here now, I can change the aspect, the view of that element, just because inside that element has something that has the selector feature, and I can do some like change, for example, if my card has an image, I will just set the text to the left side. For example, this card doesn't have an image, so the title is center. And I can also check if I don't have them. So if I don't, now is okay. And if I don't have that that element, that is a card intro, I can do something different. For example, here, I don't have an intro. That Kenneth was really presentation that some intros here are not. It's just like placeholders. But so if I don't have an intro, I can just do a special like visual change on my element. So this is one way to do like using has like. And some of the examples that I'm using today here, I have a few traumas the time that I was working with agents that. Always like people ask, what is the most complicated way to do things? And I don't know, I have those scenarios that I will try to play here. So what I want to do is like, I have a card of image and I want to change the aspect of that card when I pass the mouse over, but I don't want to change when I don't have any selection over those cards. So what I have here before, like without has, I set the scale and the transparency to not hover state, but what's happening is like, I'll just let go now. And the difference now is like when I take out the mouse from those cards, they just are like, they're not hovering, so I'm not applying those things. And now what I'm doing here is I'm just checking, if my content has a card with hover, and I will just set the card that doesn't have hover, this scale thing. I don't know. I probably work in weird place that I think for twice people ask to do that, and I always use JavaScript, and we need to loop and see what is hover or not. Like some people are like, yeah, and now we can just solve that with one selector and just do that type of behavior, just with has. But those are like two simple examples. There are a lot of things. If you Probably if you go on Twitter and search for like has examples, you're gonna see a lot of like crazy stuff there. That example was like I saw this week was like Kevin Powell that just like show quickly, and there are really cool stuff with has that we can do. Okay, another that's not like a visual change, but it's more related to the way of working is like nesting. So nesting, who is here use SAS or less? Okay, good. And who's using SAS or less only for nesting? Yeah, a few. Sometimes like that is a small project, or like when the things get more complex, you start like use more functions. But I do believe that for like 7% of people that use SAS and less, like nesting is the main thing that they use, those preprocessors. And now what happened, we can do that direct on the CSS. There are a few discussions here. I don't know if like we use e-commercial, still that spec still change, but now we can just group our CSS. The good thing to do that, for example, anything that's, for example, related to posts, I can just nest, and all the CSS is there. It's like, it's good for maintenance. If I want to change something, it's easy to find. I would just like, okay, I want to change something in post. I just search my code, find the post, and see what everything is related to that. And that was like one feature that this year, after the 17.1 on Safari implement half there, and 17.2 will implement fully that feature. Okay, now it's things that are like future, that's like not all the browsers support. But before, if you have any crazy selector or anything, you can also use that query that you can check for support, and you check if your browser supports that. And then you can kind of not create like a plan B for your new feature that you want to use. First one, it's another trauma from agents that I have. When you're like make a layout and then like the design came to you and say, no, I want breaking that point. It's like, that's the translation of the designer say, I want to break in that point. And then like, I don't know, first try you do a BR here, and like the layout change, and the BR matches up with the layout. But I do believe that like most of the case, the designer will say, I want that text balanced. I want to kind of distribute the lines equally. That's it. And here's an example with unbalance, and here an example with text wrap balance. And what will happen here is the browser will try to fill the area equally. It will try to get closer to 80%. There's some calculation behind, but we can do until 4 lines here. I can have 4 lines that will be balanced by the browser. And just we see an example here, like before and after. I have this text without balance, and when I set the value balance here, we have like equally distributed text. There is a new one that is like pretty file prettier as well. There is like a new one that also the browser started implementing that. It's a simple thing, but like I don't know. I think when I look back, I was like, oh, my life would be like easier if I have those things before. Okay, this one, it's another simple, small change, I believe, but it's a scenario that I want to do animation from one element that will disappear. I will set some moment display none. Or what I used to do before, for example, I used to use JavaScript to do the transition, create a timeline, and then when that timeline is gone, I'll just set display none for that element. And now we have a few properties. We have 3 properties that are related to exit and entry transition. I can set a value for the starting point. For example, that element wasn't on the screen before, and then I set a starting point for that. Or, like this example here, I can set like a smooth way out for that transition. So this one, first I will just remove the transition behavior. When we remove the card, like they just disappear. I just setting, here I'm just setting display none. And I will just like enable that. And when I remove the card, I can apply some transition before the browser set display none. This is one of those properties. And so, okay. Transition behavior, it's super easy to use. So for example, I have my transition here. I need to set the opacity, the time of the opacity, and I can set the time of the display. So the browser will know that in 0.25 seconds, I need to set the display of this element. Why? Because we can transition, for example, from like flags to none or block to none, but the browser will hold that transition and just set the display none at the end. Or can be other properties as well. You can just say, okay, at the end of the animation, change the display flags or display green. But for that, we just need that line, allow discrete. So allow discrete, it's for transitions. We have another item that is content visibility. That one is for keyframe animations. We can do as well for keyframe animations. And related to the starting point, we have the starting style. Starting style, it's really useful, for example, if you want to do animation for a dialogue, it's a new element, or if you want to do animation for popover. There's like a tooltip that we have a native now component, like a popover component. We can set like an entry animation for that element as well. Okay, and we just go back Colorado again. I love my city, my hometown. It's super nice. So that's in Brazil. My hometown is like northeast. We are called the capital do forró. I don't know. Here, like in Lisbon, has some forró nights. I don't know who's ever seen a forró night in Lisbon once. You know? It's a dance. Like Kenneth used to dance a lot when he was like in Brazil, but. Outside the forró, outside Colorado, scroll-driven animation, it's one thing that is super exciting. Why? I'm seeing like JavaScript being injected like massively on websites just to do parallax transitions and just like when one element appears on the screen, and the guy just like probably like some case he used a page builder and he just get this massive like library just to do a parallax effect. And then the whole website is like clunky, like because have a lot of JavaScript to do a transition for a parallax effect. And let's see if I can play with that. No. And here I have a few items that we use that API, a new API. For example, this header here, I will do animation when I start scrolling up. And then I have this progress bar, this purple bar here, is like how much I read the content. So when I get at the end of the content, the bar will just like fully on the right side. And we'll just play here. So when I start scrolling, what we do, like I can do animation on my header. And there is one moment here that I just set a stopping range for that. And some elements, when they appear on the screen, I do animation as well when they appear on the screen. And we have the top bar there that is showing like, oh, I get at the end of that content. So that image, when the image like left the view, we just like reward the animation. And then I just have like a full header again. So this API is available on Chrome 15. It's not on Safari yet or Firefox, but it is in discussion. I think it's the Interop 2024. It's including that. Here's the implementation. So the implementation for that, what I will do, on my animation, I will set the timeline. I will say, oh, the timeline for that item will be the scroll. And the scroll will be the guide that will control that animation. And after that, we have like some new properties that we can use. For example, here, this was the header. And I'm just saying that that scroll animation is the range from 0 to 9% of the viewport. When the scroll gets like 9% of the viewport, I will stop that animation. What we can do more with that? So important items here. One, that can be based on the scroll or on the view as well. For example, I can have like a gallery, and that gallery has a scroll, so we are considering like a scroll of that view. I can be based on that as well. So for example, this gallery here, it's an example that use that. So when I scroll in that content inside a div, I can have the control that show like the progress, and also I have transitions for entry and like exit the scrolling as well. And one important item that this API use a different thread to process. It's not the same thread as in JavaScript. So what that means that if you have a really heavy application on JavaScript, your parallax effect won't be affected by the JavaScript because it's running in a different thread. So you're gonna get like a smooth animation, even if your JavaScript is just like heavily process something. Don't click it. Okay. Yeah, and there are a lot of more as well. There are like plenty of new features. Like everything's like I think every 3 months when I check, there is a new feature. And I just recommended you just have a look on popovers, like scope style, and select menu. There are changes for example, how to customize a select. And now as I talk with my friends, like we spent like 20 years to get in a point that we can use CSS to do a custom selector. But it's coming, and other things more. And just one last thing about the image set. I talked at the beginning, like when I discovered the interop, like that's a code for image set. We just set like different formats here, and now it's supported by all the browsers. But when I discovered interop, I just went to GitHub and just raised a issue, say, I think we should work on the image set for the interop 2023. And when I wrote down that, I was like, okay, I'll just write down, and no one will answer, and it's fine. And we got like a lot of interactions, and we had items that like for sure that when I wrote this problem, they connect with another person that writes something similar, and the discussion just like happened there. And the nicest things that like Kenneth got excited, like accepted it. It's like things that like you got it, and because when you're like following the yearly like interop, and I just discovered that image set was accepted, like, and it was like a top 11. And the message that I want to tell you, like, if you have something that bothers you, like it's really annoying, or like, I don't know, maybe the web should do better about there, just like go to interop repo. There is a range that accept the submissions between like around October, like July and October. You can just write down what you want for the next year, and you can get in that discussion and see the things happen, like see like people get involved. And it's really nice to see that. And you don't need like any superpower. Like any person can just, okay, I have a problem. And you just find other like persons that also have the same problem as well. And then companies like Google or like Apple, they say, okay, I think we have a problem here that we need to fix because we have this bunch of people having the same issues. Okay? So I'm just getting tired of just like say something in Portuguese now, but like there is the interop panel that you can check here. I will just share the slides later on. And if you want to collaborate, that's the GitHub repo. So web platform test interop, you just go there and just make your point, say, I think this could be better on the web. And that's all from me. Obrigado.
Thank you very much. We have 5 minutes for questions.
So With CSS adopting all these new features, what do you think is the future of SAS or less?
Yeah, always when I show nesting, people say, "Oh my gosh, like SAS and LAS will be killed." I personally I think that those tools they will be looking for other things because, for example, SAS and LAS you have other functionalities, and then probably we don't need to look for that, or we just need to create a fallback here to do nesting, and probably that will reduce our processing time. But SAS and LAS they have like other features as well, and they can look for other things that they can enhance on the web. It's kind of okay, nesting is already solved. Maybe we have some items that we can improve, and we can just put like more attention on that. And I don't think that like probably when you got in a stage, if you're only used for nesting, people just use nesting. But if you're using SAS and LAS for other stuff, you just keep like using them.
I mean, so another question is why don't they directly work with the CSS team and just make it better rather than implementing their own?
Yeah, I'd say I think the like pre-processing we have like is the evolution of the web, like those things when I show you here, like for example, I think Kenneth can tell us how painful it is to get in a point to accept something. Like for example, even my comment about image set was like 100 messages, people just discussing, oh, we should do this and that, and like people have different opinion. And probably when you have a framework, kind of, I want to fix. Usually the frameworks, like they are born, like they appear inside some companies because they're made to solve a problem for that company, and then they open for the web, and like loads of people say, oh, also that like helps with my problem. But usually you have someone that I would just fix that scenario. When you bring to the web, kind of like you bring to the web and get more complex. And like some people have the patience to go there and discuss, and some people say, no, I will do on my way, and if you want to use, here's the GitHub, like here's the repo, and you can use that, yeah.
Makes sense, because we have 1 billion libraries on it.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions?
Thanks for the talk. Really helpful styles. Not a question, just a little addition. You don't have to wait for discrete transition behavior because it can be implemented in the current CSS using steps function.
Yeah.
It didn't work before at some point, but a couple years ago it started to work.
Yeah.
It's really nice.
Related to transition, I was in Berlin last weekend and at the DevFest Berlin, and my talk was only for transitions. I just saw one one small part of transition. There are like a lot of things of transition that like also being implemented now as well. But it's a good point. Yeah.
Thank you.
We have 1 more minute.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for your talk. Thank you for interrupt. And it's a very big deal. It's very helpful, and it makes our life easily. Yeah. And the question: so we have nesting now in CSS. When can we find loops in CSS?
Yeah.
So, okay, it's a joke. My point is that, from my perspective, it's a very strange thing. I don't like nesting. It's nothing new. It's like just not good for me.
Yeah.
The syntaxes, it's like some sugar. And why CSS group decided to add it, and maybe it's it was a wrong step in wrong direction. Because in next step again we have loop in next year or whatever.
Yeah, I think that's an important thing about those new features. Number one is you can use the old way if you. Yeah, you're not forced to use nesting. It's just if you want to use nesting, you have the option for that, and usually when those things go to discussion, it's voted. And if you hate something, you can just go there and say, don't do that with the web. But usually when I see other projects as well, usually when you have something that you don't like, you just discover when it's released, and then you just go mad there. But I think that there are a few things. One is like, it's a global change. There are a lot of discussion. The browsers are involved. They are like, okay, people also, not everyone likes nesting, and we have the normal one. Related to loops, yeah. But related to, we have a few things for like counting, and we have more related to selectors. Sometimes we want to do, for example, there is a new thing that I want to do a styling when I have 5 elements in my list. It's not more, for example, repetition that we have loops on size or less, that I want to repeat that CSS because I know that I will have like 5 different styles progressively. Yeah. And so those kind of things sometimes stay on the framework side, not on the web. Yeah, but I don't know if I'm going to answer, but like if you want to like contribute with that, I think the best way is just go to those things because it's open for everyone. There is a really important discussion that like should be what is JavaScript responsibility and what is CSS responsibility, and always like when we get like has and those more logical selectors, people get more hesitant about that. But personally, for me, has solved a lot of issues. Yeah, the has selector, for example. I don't need like JavaScript to adapt my layout when I have one banner, for example. I just do with CSS. But it's like, yeah, it's always a blur, right? And the good thing, the beauty about CSS are like hundreds of ways to do the same thing. That's it. You can like choose your own path then.
All right. Thank you very much. If you have other questions, you can find Fellyph somewhere in networking area.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's give him a very warm applause again.
Thank you.